it's not about that. It's about, this is what I can add to your organization. This is what I can, this is where my value is. I don't care a lot about the backstory. It's about, okay, this is what I can bring to the table.
We have Brad Harper here as our guest, and he's an industrial design recruiter with several years of experience. He also has a channel called Design Truth. It's a really interesting podcast, which I will link in the description. I encourage you to check it out. I wanted to show you a recruiter's perspective because ultimately your work is going to be viewed by recruiters or people in HR before a designer ever sees it. So this is actually the first round that you need to get through in order to even talk to a designer. There are actually some pretty big differences between what a recruiter is looking for and what a designer is looking for. So I'll be doing another video on what a designer is looking for in a great portfolio. That'll be the next video in this series.
We wanted to kind of talk about what good looks like.
Yeah.
And this folio is always something that I've looked back on and over time and gone, it still stands true today. So I mean, we've already just touched upon it, but kind of 2016, honestly, if you look at a graduate portfolio from 2021, a lot of them just look immaculate. But it's going to be interesting going through this particular portfolio with you, John, because you're going to look at it from a technical lens, whereas I may be looking at other things from not from a design eye, but there may be certain things which tells me about the person's characteristics or something like that, which I gravitate towards. So, I mean, the first kind of page is does it grab my attention? That's what I always look for from the first page. Does this person have a little bit of a design style, or is it just their name, and the word portfolio? For me, there's a sense of design style here.
So this is just me. If I'm looking to hire somebody, I will immediately skip the first page and go straight to the work. And the first thing that I'll look at is the sketching quality, because I find that very important in terms of my process personally.
Okay, that's interesting. So to give context to people that listen, this is a chap called Guy Newsome. His work, this is old work of his. He's someone I've known for a long time. And actually, off the back of this job, this portfolio, it landed him a job at Samsung. So that gives you the kind of level of caliber. It's nice that there's a sense of kind of fluidity here. Someone's is thinking a little bit about branding, the colors, all this kind of stuff. It flows. It flows well. It's not in your face where there's just images everywhere and it looks quite scary. You can read it and it's not like, personally, I know he's put his CV on page 41. I'd quite like that on the top.
In regards to CVs or resumes in a portfolio, I have never looked at a CV in a portfolio in my entire life. I immediately skip right past it, and I find it to be a complete waste of time. So this is a good differentiator in terms of what a recruiter would look for and what a designer would look for. You should probably show your resume and CV in a recruiter portfolio. Don't bother showing it with designers.
Quite early on, rather than having to scroll through to find his phone number, for example. Let's just make it as easy as possible for them to get hold of me. But instantly, I hope you can see here, just from the first bit of work here, that you'd be going straight into the sketching now, wouldn't you? On this page here, straight into the sketch quality. Is that what you're looking at, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, I see that this person can draw, and then I would actually look at the portfolio. That is an absolute prerequisite, and I won't consider somebody who cannot draw to a reasonable level. So then it's like, okay, they passed the first test. Now we can look at the portfolio, basically. I think why I think these sketches are good is because he's not just doing sketches for the sake of sketching to look nice. These are working sketches. These are sketches that this person is actually thinking through his ideas with. So I think that's actually more important than the actual quality. Of course, the quality needs to communicate to somebody, but that is more important than anything else in terms of the sketching. Are they using it to basically work through and communicate ideas?
And what we're seeing on this page is multiple skills in one page with not a lot of text, but you can make assumptions that, okay, there's some rendering here, there's some sketching here. He's briefly outlined the brief itself, but not kind of gone into too much depth, but it's communicated in a style where you kind of know what's happening. So he's not gone text overload, but he's just given the brief synopsis of the brief, and that you're seeing multiple skills on one page without a lot of information. What I'm looking for is, I always think about what's the brief that's been given to me as the recruiter.
I cannot stress enough how important this is. When you're applying for a job, you need to have an intimate understanding of what they're looking for. So, more specifically, you can look at the job description and see if you actually fit the criteria. You need to ask the recruiter or HR what they're looking for. You need to ask the hiring managers what they're looking for. And then think of specific examples of how you've demonstrated that skill in the past. I'm going to have an entire separate video on this in particular, but I can't stress enough how important this is, though. It's ultimately what's going to get you the job. By the way, if you're still watching at this point, it probably means you enjoy the videos and you should subscribe. It helps me out, helps the channel out, it motivates me to continue making videos, and I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
Just to give you an example, this person got the job at Samsung, so I'm looking for, okay, a Samsung product, a broad overview of the kind of things they're going to be interested in, as like an electronic, appreciation for things like noise and vibe, because if it's within kind of, I think it was within white goods, so appreciation for noise, heat, plastic injection mold, all that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at a Vax vacuum cleaner and going, well, yeah, it's got all of that. It doesn't necessarily need to be from a direct competitor, but just a broad kind of tick sheet of, okay, has he worked with Far East suppliers? Yeah. Has he actually done the design work? You don't really know that until you talk to the person. So someone will present something and then you'll want to just dig a little bit deeper into that. So did you do that render? Was that your work? I quite like this stuff here. So I know it's just a picture of him over in the Far East, but he's been out to see suppliers. And so I'm starting to think about, okay, tooling and things, so again, any kind of in-house kind of job, he's been out there, he's experienced it, it's a lived experience. Whereas someone else that's showing me kind of, again, just the renders and stuff, have you actually gone out, met a supplier, understand how products are made? But I'm getting that just from a picture. I'm making that quick assumption. And so is someone actually kind of putting work together in their portfolio, but isn't putting in a picture of them going to meet a supplier? But you might not think, oh, it's pointless. No one wants to see that, but they do, because if the job is all about, Far East manufacturing, product development, getting stuff through to market, they're going to want to see that you've been out there and you understand it a little bit more than maybe someone else that's applied for the job that doesn't. And again, is that going to, a portfolio doesn't get you a job, it gets you the interview, but is that going to get you an interview? Oh, okay, been out to the Far East for a bit, we can work with that. Do you see? Well, from my lens, I'm not looking at it from a technical aspect, I'm looking at things like that because that's the brief that's been kind of highlighted to me.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I would never think to put a picture like that in my portfolio in my entire life, but now I'm definitely reconsidering.
Again, some great kind of visualization work here, and just again, not a lot of text. You see how it's just explaining the information in like 6 words. It's a lot harder than what it sounds. It really is. And again, it just kind of flows nicely from the you're wanting to scroll down to read more, but here some great shots on the assembly line, not precious about it. He wants to be he wants to understand how the product's made. People say, how many projects should I put in my portfolio? How many pages should it be? Is there this magic number? It's just down to the quality of the work. I'd happily scroll through this. I'm enjoying scrolling through this portfolio right now, and I saw it 5 years ago. Is it showing me all the skills for the job that I'm applying for? The answer is yes.
Did he spell brief wrong?
He spelled brief wrong. He spelled brief wrong, yeah. And so when someone sends, obviously this is Behance, if someone sends me that, I may say, look, quick attention to detail thing, just change that to brief. Does it make a difference? I think it does. But I'm also looking at kind of the uni projects and how the fact that, okay, he's done, there's like a trend here that he's kind of, even the briefs he's taking at a university level, you see how this is like natural, it all kind of makes sense. Like he's worked on a vacuum cleaner, then he's gone and worked for a vacuum cleaner company. And so he's transitioned. The transition out of university will be a lot easier for him. To get that, if his first job's at Vax and his final year project is at Shark, you see how it's going to be a lot easier for him to get the job. So always make sure your final year project is linked to the kind of jobs you want to go to. And so even though you might think, oh, he's just going to be designing vacuum cleaners for the rest of his life, that's not true, because again, I've touched upon it so many times. He's got exposure to Chinese manufacturing, appreciation for heat, for noise. It's plastic, injection molded, moving parts. So he could then go into appliances. He could go into consumer electronics. He can go into white goods, because the actual process is so many similarities. It's not perfect, but there's enough there for you to say, okay, I'll take a chance on this person. What is the client going to want to? Why is this person? What's the USP of this person? Okay, the experience outline that we touched on earlier, that's what they're going to like. So when I'm talking to the client, or I'll say, look, this person's done this, and this, when I'm sending that initial email through, saying I've got someone, this is why I want you to interview this person. What's the unique kind of selling point of this person? Just again, 3-4 bullet points. And I'd even use that for when you're like applying for a job. It's like, this is why I'm right for your company. Like, rather than just this massive covering note talking about how you want to save the planet and how you fell in love with design. And it's not about that. It's about, this is what I can add to your organization. This is what I can, this is where my value is. I don't care a lot about the backstory. It's about, okay, this is what I can bring to the table.
So in summary, when you're showing a portfolio to a recruiter, you want to focus on a clear and clean presentation more than anything else. You want to be easy to find and contact. You want to have A+ technical skills. That's critically important. You have to figure out what the company needs and make sure that you fulfill that criteria. The portfolio is not enough. It'll get you an interview, but it won't get you the job. So make sure that you have that criteria well understood so that when you talk about it, they'll want to hire you. This goes for both designers and recruiters, but you want to show, don't tell. Don't focus so much on text. Show me with images. And then the last thing is that you want to show a cohesive progression or story throughout your career. You want it all to kind of make sense. It's almost like every single job that you've had has led you up to this point, and this is the next stepping stone in your career.